Hello, everybody. This is the brand new series. This is called the Character Analysis Series, and basically, what the series is all about, it's analyzing the character, the strengths of characters, and all types of different game series, and all the characters in the series and whatnot and stuff. So, analyzing the strengths of the character, like their special abilities in certain cases, the backstory of the character, and just all the facts that you would need to know about a character, and just talking about the character in general. So, today, and actually for probably the next few episodes of this new series, right now we're on the topic of The Last of Us Part 1 and 2. So I'm not going to be talking about every single character, but just the major characters, that play a part in the story. So Last of Us Part 1 and 2 we're going to talk about. So today, pretty much the main character of the first game at least, we're going to be talking about Joel. So Joel Miller, warning this, pretty much this series, I guess probably for like a lot of this series actually, it will contain spoilers for the game series, but in this video it will contain spoilers for Joel and Joel's fate in The Last of Us Part 2. We're going to be talking about him in the first game and the second game, so this will contain spoilers. So if you haven't played The Last of Us Part 2 or Part 1, um, let's, spoiler warning ahead, don't watch this video. Joel was a survivor in the post-apocalyptic America that had been ravaged by the cordyceps brain infection. After losing his only daughter, Sarah, in the early stage of the outbreak, Joel became a ruthless and cynical smuggler, eventually tasked with smuggling and protecting Ellie Williams, a young girl who was the key to mankind's survival. Joel eventually formed a strong bond with her. A brutal survivor with a few moral lines left to cross, Joel, now in his late 40s, has been hardened by the ravages of the fungal pandemic that has devastated civilization as we know it. He lost friends, family, and everything he valued in life. Living in one of the few remaining military-controlled quarantine zones, he operates as a black market smuggler, dealing in contraband, taking numerous dehumanizing jobs over the years to survive in this new post-pandemic world. Joel's conscience slowly dwindles away as he shuts down his emotions to cope with his new life. Now let's talk about background in his early life. Joel was born on September 26th in the early to mid 1980s and grew up in Texas alongside his younger brother Tommy. As a child, Joel developed a passion for music, learning to play acoustic guitar and once even aspired to become a singer. In his teens, Joel had a daughter named Sarah, and he was married to her mother for a short period of time. Saddled in early life with responsibilities of parenthood, he never had the opportunity to attend college. And he does mention it in the university part of the game, the first game, where he had Sarah when he was pretty young. So he had, I'm sure, what I'm thinking is he had a girlfriend that lived in college and had a daughter with her. So that's what I think. So regarding his ex-wife, whatever occurred between them is painful for Joel to talk about. Shortly after Sarah was born, Joel's wife left him. As a result, he raised their only daughter as a single father for the majority of his life. The two lived together in a two-story single-family home somewhere in or around Austin, Texas, located in Travis County through Texas State Highway 71. As an adult, Joel worked as a carpenter alongside Tommy. He kept a revolver and owned a pickup truck outside of his house. Building plans laid on his beside table along with several copies of a book called Construction Regionalism on top of his bookshelf. He possessed ambitions of starting his own business with a copy of Everything You Need to Know About Creating a Startup. Also on the table next to his bed. His job kept him fit, and he owned a treadmill in his bedroom. He mentioned in a phone call that he was struggling to keep this job with a contractor. So which is pretty interesting. So, in the hours leading up to the outbreak, Sarah gave him a new watch as a birthday gift to replace the one he had broken months before. This became a cherished memento he manages to keep in the turbulent years ahead. He keeps that watch on his left wrist. So, as you can see here in the gameplay. So, on September 26, 2013, Joel arrived home late from work and put Sarah to bed after watching the television together. During the early hours of September 27th, Joel was attacked by his neighbor and forced to shoot him dead with his revolver in self-defense. After calming Sarah, Tommy arrived to evacuate them in his truck. After driving towards the highway and trying to make sense of the situation, so took another route. The road was blocked, only for the car to collide with an oncoming vehicle. Once he came to, Joe kicked the windshield out so the three could run on foot. He had to carry Sarah as her was injured, and she could not walk. The pair reached the highway but encountered a soldier. The soldier's commanding officer ordered him over the radio to kill the two, so he opened fire, collapsing to the ground. The soldier moved to execute Joel, but Tommy arrived, gunning down the soldier. However, Sarah was fatally hit. Despite Joel's efforts, she died in his arms. That's very sad. So, and now we're moving on to the surviving, like kind of what he did after like pretty much right after Sarah unfortunately died. Shortly after Sarah's death, Joel found himself in a tragic triage clinic after making it to the highway. He witnessed how families had been torn apart and how much chaos had erupted in the world. While there, he considered committing suicide but was unable to, finding something to fight for. However, what he found was worth fighting for was something his brother, Tommy, greatly disliked. Over the years, the pair survived by descending into a sinister way of life. Joel tortured, deceived, and killed countless innocent people, becoming a hunter. He adopted tactics such as tricking passerby into thinking he was hurt so he could ambush them when they let their guard down. Joel and Tommy eventually reached the city of Boston, smuggling themselves into the city. Tommy finally had enough of Joel's philosophy on how to survive, abandoning his brother to join a growing militia known as the Fireflies. After being persuaded by the leader, Marlene, the two argued furiously over this, Tommy finishing with, "I don't ever want to see your goddamn face again." Tommy eventually left the Fireflies as well, but did not return to Joel, leaving Boston to go to Wyoming. So, Joel spent a considerable period of time alone, meeting a woman named Tess. The pair grew close, teaming up to act as smugglers in the quarantine zone. They worked with several people, namely Robert, who they grew to heavily distrust, Bill, who owed Joel some favors, and Donovan. It is unknown if the pair ever had a romantic relationship. Their dialogue heavily implies they care deeply for each other. At the end of the first game, Joel moved into Tommy's town, which is called Jackson, which is in Wyoming. Um, him and Ellie, and we'll be also obviously talking about Ellie because she is another major character in another episode of this series. But in the second game, he settled down in Jackson, and it was 5 years after the events of the first game, I believe. We're talking about The Last of Us Part 2 now. So 5 years after the events of this game, um, Joel is settled down in Jackson with Ellie, and he just basically helps out with the community and does patrol routes. He's a Jackson patrolman, doing patrol routes and helping clear out the infected around the Jackson area. Unfortunately, though, spoiler alert right now, he does die. He is deceased. And a lot of Last of Us fans I know were not happy with Joel's death. They feel like, they felt like they were done wrong by it. And honestly, as a Last of Us fan myself, I don't think I was really upset when I first played the game and they killed off Joel. I was not really happy about that, but honestly, it's just, I mean, it had to happen for the plot of the whole reason for The Last of Us Part 2 was revenge. So, kind of wrap this up here. We're going to talk about Joel's death, basically how he died, and the legacy he leaves on the whole Last of Us story. So, Joel and Tommy were out on patrol when a blizzard swept over Jackson. The two sought refuge in a building complex where they found Abby Anderson from a horde of infected, and they saved her too. Abby took Joel and Tommy back to a hideout at Baldwin Mansion where her group were staying. Tommy and Joel introduced themselves. Then the group became silent and suspicious. Joel noted they seemed to know the brothers, which Abby confirmed before shooting Joel's leg with a shotgun. After the group knocked out Tommy, they dragged Joel to a wall and restrained him. Abby told him to guess who she was, but Joel growled for her to say her speech and finish him. Having Joel's leg wrapped in a makeshift tourniquet to ensure he didn't die of blood loss, Abby took a golf club and began to beat him with it. When Ellie found Abby beating Joel, she tried to interfere but was quickly restrained by Abby's team. With Ellie pinned down, she begged Joel to get up as he weakly opened his eyes to look at her. Unable to move seconds later, deaf to Ellie's pleas, Abby bashed Joel's skull in with a golf club, killing him. This is his legacy. Joel's body, along with the unconscious Tommy and Ellie, were found soon after by Dina and Jesse. His body was later buried in Jackson Cemetery, with many members of the community leaving condolences outside his house. Both Ellie and Tommy went after the group to avenge Joel, with Ellie receiving help from Dina and later Jesse. Ellie learned Abby had killed Joel because she and her group were ex-Fireflies from St. Mary's Hospital, intent exacting revenge for Joel's actions. Joel's death was especially traumatic for Ellie. So pretty much over the 20 years of post-apocalypse, Joel spent time, he was on a lot of different sides, as he says in the story. He became a hunter for a certain amount of time. Then he ended up coming to Boston, the one of the few military-controlled quarantine zones in the post-pandemic. So, yes, pretty Joel, and basically his personality really, he's kind of a rough survivor. You know, he doesn't really trust a lot of people. He does have a soft spot for Tess, but he doesn't really trust a lot of people. He is very cautious with what he does, and he does have a lot of experience with guns, as guns is one of the things he smuggles. He also can craft a lot of different things as shown in the game, and he has a lot of expertise knowing everything, and he's expert at smuggling, and he smuggles pretty easy things, and he actually has to end up smuggling Ellie, um, which is the base of the story. So, unfortunately, Joel did have to die. But yeah, so that's pretty much Joel's character analysis. I got all of that, or if not, some, if not pretty much all, from the Last of Us wiki. So thank you to the Last of Us wiki for supplying me with that information. I was reading that, and yeah, hopefully you guys just enjoy this brand new series. I'm gonna be coming. We're on The Last of Us right now, so the next character analysis is going to be Ellie, and we're gonna be talking about Ellie, the same way we talked about Joel. So make sure to subscribe for more content, like the video, all the good stuff. Discord, Twitch, Instagram, links in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.